board meeting with a pledge of allegiance. And here's the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I so move.
Second.
Victor. It's time. We have time now for public comment on items on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
So far, I don't see anyone called in.
So if not, is TJ here? Yep.
Yeah, I'm right here.
All right. Brian, you want to take it away?
Sure. First thing I want to do before I start bragging about TJ and how amazing he is, even with his puffy cheeks, I would like to thank the board for contributing to this scholarship. Your generosity is not only appreciated by TJ and his parents, but also by our faculty and staff. Thank you for your support. Thomas is an amazing, amazing child. He's actually a poster child for our core ethical values. He is a member of our National Honor Society, our Spanish Honor Society. He's a two-sport varsity athlete playing both baseball and hockey, and he's a member of our Athletic Leadership Council. But TJ is also the student that we always turn to when we need something done or we need help with something. He'll be the one on his own to go up to a child sitting by themselves in the cafeteria and sit next to them. It doesn't matter what grade they're in. He'll just find out what's going on, and if he feels it's significant, he'll stop by my office. He'll give me a heads up, talk to Miss Millo, stop in guidance, just to kind of help, because he truly cares about people and the students at Coggins. But he's also a student that we turn to for our China partnership. When we had our friends from China here, we were looking for some students to shadow and to assist us for 2 weeks, and TJ was right on top of that, helping with that. But what I would say really set TJ apart from others with regard to the Board of Ed Award would be his work with Winnie. And what Winnie was or is a service dog. And TJ worked for 17 months training this puppy for someone else to have and to keep and to help. And so I can tell you about that experience the best I can, but I really can't do it justice. So I kind of told TJ I would have him speak about Winnie and his experience, because I really think it's very powerful. So TJ, you're up.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Mr. Falcone, for those kind words. Well, my experience with Winnie was a lot of fun. She started out as a little puppy that I had no clue how to take care of, and together we kind of learned to understand each other and whatnot. And after a while, we kind of became like, my mom described us as basically sharing a brain. I brought her to school a bunch of times. I actually, on my last day of school, I was able to take her around the entire day, and we worked within the classes, and it was just a great time. And so what we did, our schedule was basically every week we'd go up to the Fidelco headquarters in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and we would have about an hour-long training session, and we'd have a test about every month or so, just to test her on her skills. And this happened for about 17 months, and we gave her back to Fidelco in March of 2019. And actually last December, we were able to go visit her, and we were able to see her final test as she became a certified guide dog, and we're able to visit her and see her after that, which was really, really great.
What kind of?
So I'm sorry, Bob, but I just think that, seeing TJ through that experience and how he just goes above and beyond in our school for others, no matter what and no matter who. He just was the perfect person that fit the requirements for your scholarship. So thank you.
Just to remind you that our scholarship is based on the student that exhibits our core ethical values for their 4 years of school. For the board, the core ethical values are respect, responsibility, honesty, kindness, and courage. And I think, as Mr. Falcone said, you have exhibited all those, and I hope your family is listening, and I hope they're very proud of you.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, and spend the money carefully, or with
I will.
fun. All right.
And yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for this great honor. I really do appreciate it, as does the rest of my family.
Can I just add one thing, Bob? Brian talked about what a great partner TJ was when we had our visitors from China. And the day that our visitors were leaving, there were several students who, just as they started to get their things together, both Coginchac students and our students from Ningbo actually started to cry. And there was one boy in particular who really, really was having a hard time getting on the bus to head to the airport. And I kind of was watching from afar, and TJ just stayed next to this young man. And at first we were in the library, and then it was time for them to move to the cafeteria. And TJ just kept saying to him, I'm just going to stay with you. I'll stay with you. I'll go with you to the cafeteria. They got to the cafeteria, kid was still crying. I think Bob and I probably were crying too by that point. And then the kids moved out to the sidewalk, and TJ said, hey, you know what, pal? I'm just going to stand with you out on the sidewalk. I'll stay right here with you. Then it was time to get on the bus, and he got on the bus and sat with this young man until the bus pulled away. I ended up calling TJ's mom. I didn't know TJ really. I called his mom at work. I believe she works at Wesleyan. And I mean, generally, if the principal or the superintendent's calling your mom, either it's not that great or you're in second grade. What I witnessed was exactly what Brian and Bob talked about, of absolutely the embodiment of District 13's core ethical values. So as the superintendent of schools, I want to say to you, what an honor it has been to know you and to have your guidance and you being a role model here for our students. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. That really means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
You're headed to UConn next fall?
I am, yeah. I'll be part of their 5-year integrated bachelor's master's program. So I'm going to be trying to get a certification in education and a master's degree in educational psychology, actually.
Great. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thank you, Brian. Kath, you wanted to have the recognition of retirements and resignations?
Sure. I just need, Ken, I just need you to enable the screen sharing for me.
Is it okay if we have TJ hang up?
Oh, sure. You can hang up too, Brian. Oh, wait, actually, hold on. Bob, would this be a good time for Brian just to talk about just a quick update on graduation so he doesn't have to stay for the whole meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So our graduation planning started a long time ago when we had our first plan and then our second plan and then our third plan. And as you all know, the game keeps changing on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. So on June 5th, though, was our first step in the process for graduation. And that's when we had all of our seniors. We had actually 119 of the 124 seniors showed up on that Friday and picked up their caps and their gowns and they picked up the board gift, which was a red cord to wear, which symbolizes resilience and strength, and a couple RSD13 gifts. We got them sweatshirts, we got them a personalized Coggin mask, and we got them personalized lawn signs for graduation. And so those were some gifts that we got from our Region 13 staff. The next step for graduation is June 16th, which is our normal or our scheduled graduation date. And what we have is that we have our project grad committee that is going to organize a pickup of a goodie bag for all of our seniors. And so the seniors are going to pull up to the high school around where the cafeteria is. We're going to have a DJ playing music, but no one can get out of their cars. The kids are going to pull up and they're going to pop in a goodie bag, which has gift certificates, a t-shirt, and some other goodies that they've collected and paid for over the past few months for the kids. And then that's at 4 o'clock. And then at 6 o'clock, we're releasing the virtual high school graduation ceremony, which Todd Petronio and Amy Jakes and actually Pierce Stephan have been working on. And it's about a 2-hour ceremony with all the different pieces they have in there. So we are releasing that at 6 o'clock at night to social media on our website, and we're emailing it to all the parents and students, that link. So you'll get it as well if you like to watch the virtual graduation. Then everything else is really postponed until that July 31st date. And we originally picked the July 31st date strategically because we were basically working with our health director. He said, you know, later in the summer would be better, but we also have kids that are going to colleges outside of Connecticut, and some of them are student athletes, and they're leaving early. So that was the latest weekend we can go before our students started to leave to colleges and to go to universities. And we wanted everyone to be able to be a part of our ceremony. So on July 29th, a couple days before graduation, we are going to allow the parents to hang all of the banners on our fence. So that's a tradition we have. We have the fence as you're pulling up to the turf field. On the right side, parents hang their sheets with all the messages for their kids. That will go up on the 29th. And then on the 31st, we are scheduled for a 124 student only graduation ceremony. The information we have now with the maximum number of people that starts after July 6th is we could gather 150 people. So it's kind of fortunate that we have a small high school graduating class in this circumstance. So we're able to gather all the kids in one place and live stream the ceremony for the parents and family members. Additionally, we're going to do a reverse parade with our faculty up and down Picket Lane, so our kids will have the chance to say goodbye. So as they drive down Picket Lane, our faculty will be 10 feet apart from each other, kind of lining the road with signs, you know, wishing them well and saying goodbye to the students. There's a few, there's a number of reasons why we're going in this direction right now. And a lot of it, or all of it, is really from the kids. So we sent a survey out to the whole entire senior class, and we received 45 student responses to that survey. We gave them a week to respond, and it was 100% about graduation. And if they wanted to give their recommendations for what graduation should be, and if they would want to meet with myself and Mrs. Malillo to have a discussion or a focus group discussion about graduation and what it should look like. And through that survey and through that focus group discussion, there were 2 priorities that were crystal clear to the kids. The first is they all wanted to be together as a class one last time. That was crystal clear. That was their number 1 priority. The second is they wanted to have the opportunity, to walk through Coggin again and say goodbye to their teachers. But the real message was they wanted to say goodbye to their teachers. So we were hopeful that with this type of ceremony, we would be able to make both of their wishes happen. The other thing that came up, it kind of filtered through, is they wanted something traditional on our field, at our school, at our campus. I've had a lot of people reach out to me. And when I say a lot, I know you guys are a data-driven board. I would say I probably have about 100 people, from community members to students to parents, that have reached out to me with all different types of ideas, from calling the ski resort and getting the ski lifts, to a parade down Main Street for our seniors, to just a whole bunch of different, doing 2 or 3 different graduation ceremonies for the kids. But really, our focus is student-centered in what they wanted and what they asked for. And so we're not, we respectfully heard everyone, but we feel that at this time, based on what the kids have shared with us, this is the right kind of ceremony, and it's meeting their requests of what they're asking for. With that being said, today, there was a governor's conference call, and the Commissioner of Education shared that there's further guidance coming with regard to graduation and outdoor school activities. So there's more to come. We just don't know what it is at this time. But for right now, that's our solid plan is 150 people gathering for our graduation, students only, and live streaming it for parents. And I always, at this point, I don't know if I'm frozen and if anyone heard anything I said at all, or if it's just that awkward moment.
You know, I have to say that the lawn signs are awesome. I really like that. I've been driving by the picture, just the way they're done. They're beautiful. Really, really like those. It's a great idea.
That came from Florida. We stole that from a school in Florida.
Oh, hey. It's a great idea.
Any other comments for Brian?
Brian, thank you so much for all your work and pulling this together and all the work with your faculty and your staff during this tough time. It's really been incredible to see all the work that you guys have done. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You know, the one other thing I wanted to say is when we did the pickup and drop off with the seniors, and it was just the senior class coming, I can't tell you how appreciative the kids are of everything that we've done as a district, not just the high school. I mean, they were talking about the parade for the younger kids and how they were able to get, the kids to the bus route, and they were watching them for parents while they had to work inside. And they're just so happy about how hard we're working for them and what we're all doing for them. And it's not just myself and my staff. I mean, and I made sure that those, it's very simple to say, because they end with us. But this is 13 years of education and being in our district. The gifts are from everyone. The gifts are from every teacher from kindergarten through grade 12. And what we're going to be able to provide is, it's the work that we're doing at the high school level, but really it's the work of everyone. And, it's your support and your flexibility and understanding that, Kathy and I and Beth and our team and you guys, it's student-centered, and I think that's the key for us, is just keeping that focus and directing any questions you might get that you're uncertain of. Direct them to me. I've had a ton of them. I get a number of them each day, so I'm happy to answer it. And I understand the emotion behind this ceremony and what it means for people. I really do. So anything I could do to help, just let me know.
Thank you very much, Brian. Anybody have any other comments or questions? Thanks, Brian. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you. Kath?
And Ken's not able to have me share my screen, but I shared at the very end of that parade slideshow, Ken, are the 2 slides. The second to last is retirements, and then the last slide is resignations, if you're able to share those. And if not, I can just read the names off.
I think I fixed it for you to share. If not, I'll pull those. I'm locating those.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Okay. Okay, so for this year, in terms of retirements, we only have 5. Maureen Johnson, who was our accounts payable person in central office, who had actually been with the district in other capacities in school offices and as a paraprofessional since 1987. She was just an extraordinary person and employee. Nancy Sidlecki, who is one of our science teachers extraordinaire, really, raised the bar in our science department and contributed to the outstanding department at our high school. Colleen Dunn as well, another science teacher here since 1996, very positive, upbeat, and helps students to get excited about science. Kathy Barra is one of our teaching assistants at Brewster. I want you to know that Kathy was instrumental in organizing the parade. I had kind of started doing the work myself and then hit the point where I said, you know what, I cannot kind of run the district and organize a parade of 200 people. So I reached out to Kathy, and Kathy, and this is not confidential, but Kathy is facing a health challenge right now and actually had surgery on Monday. And as we were doing the kind of the last minute details of the parade planning, she and I were on a Google call with Marcia Croto, Jimmy Croto's wife, who also helped with this. And she said, I can't thank you enough for allowing me to be a part of this and to help me shift my focus from myself and onto something else. Again, just a true example of a District 13 employee and someone who truly, truly loves the children that she works with. She has worked in the pre-K at Brewster School. Sue Francis had been a teacher for many years at John Lyman School, and after she tried retiring as a teacher and then worked as a teacher's assistant at John Lyman School. And then these are just folks who have, and I won't talk about each of them, but people who have what I have said is, picked a new horizon, and we were very, very happy to have them all as a part of our District 13 family for as long as they were here. And that's it, Bob.
Thank you, Kath. Any questions from anybody? Good. I guess there won't be any parties for those people who are retiring since you can't really do much. So
I don't know whether now that we've had a little bit of an easing up, whether their friends or their school will plan small get-togethers for them.
Okay. Well, let us know.
Okay.
Next item is the approval of the minutes of the May 27th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do I have a second? Victor has the second finger up. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The next board meeting is on
I'll abstain.
Okay. That was Maura, right?
Christine.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm a little insulted, but it's okay.
Yes.
So you would know my voice. But
I'm sorry for running out, but we had our resident raccoon was attacking my bird feeder, and I had to get him out of there. Sorry.
I have a trap if you want it. Next board meeting is June 24th at 7. And we may combine that with issues of the selection of the consultant. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And
I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't hear you. We might combine it with what?
A interview of the selection for the superintendent search
Okay.
consultants.
Okay.
I'll try to see if we can arrange that. And Kath, back to you. An update.
Okay, sure. As we, begin the update, I just want to note that as we're kind of headed into the end of the school year, the death of George Floyd and the, kind of the following events was something that impacted our district, something that we have have talked about as a faculty. We've kind of re-examined what our equity plan looks like. What does it mean to really address systemic racism? What does it mean for us as a district to make sure that all of our students, including our students who are Black and brown, feel safe and a part of our school district? We've met as a team of superintendents in the area to, again, look at what does this really mean to take bold and courageous action. I bring this up as well because some parents have reached out to me to ask me about the role of the Board of Education and in what ways is the Board of Education supporting the work that is being done in the district, and what kind of a commitment is the board willing to make. I'm imagining, Bob, that and Norm, both at ACES and through CABE, there must be discussions at this point regarding the board's actions. There are some ideas that I have, and I think if you wouldn't mind, if we could also spend a little bit of time at the June 24th meeting talking a little bit more further about this. I just didn't want this evening to go by without mentioning our commitment to this. Also, as part of our school closure, we've had as Brian mentioned, the handing out of materials that happened at Cog and Chog and at Strong this week. Everybody is, thrilled to see the kids, even in a drive-by format. Memorial, Brewster, and Lyman will have their material handouts on Monday and Tuesday, as well as some virtual step-up events. Teachers are engaged this week in their kind of end of the year goodbye, some fun events with students. On Monday and Tuesday, teachers will be engaged in some of the special education planning, transition planning, class placement, looking at curriculum, and there will also be curriculum work that extends until the end of June for some people. Pam Bransifort, who is our nursing supervisor, and I met with Brad Jubileer, who is the consulting physician for the district. We met with him a couple of weeks ago because we felt we were at that point where we realized that just having somebody who actually has that role in our district could start to give us some kind of real-time local advice. And in particular, we're really focusing on summer school. And if we were to do any in-person summer school, what was his advice and what might he share with us as good practices if we were trying to do that. At this point for ESY, which is extended school year, and when we talk about summer school and ESY, extended school years for students who are identified as needing special education services, we have 69 students who are enrolled for ESY from pre-K through 12. We also have 43 students who are in special education who are just getting what we're calling summer learning support. We have handed out 15 learning packets for students to use at home, and 10 of our students will be receiving specific Orton Gillingham training, or Orton Gillingham support, which is specifically designed for students who have dyslexia. And as I mentioned, we are examining whether we can safely provide occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech services, some ABA support to students. And if we can do that safely, we will reach out to parents about that. In particular, we're trying to look at that after August 1st time, students who may need some support, in particular who receive support from ABA, of transitioning back to the building and actually being present in the building, and especially those students who may be transitioning from one building to the next. Kim and I met with a representative in a virtual meeting from Bloom Shapiro, who is our auditing firm. They actually have an HR advisory practice. And while we're in the process of hiring an HR specialist for the district, we met with them because they can offer a service where they can work in a consultant type fashion with us. And basically what they have done is they've developed a template that is a return to work template. We got a brief review of that, a very, very comprehensive return to work document, and then they will continue to work with us to kind of fine tune it to District 13. We've already begun to work on our kind of strategic plan for reopening and recovery. So I think that these two things will merge nicely. So we will be working with them and using that service. They anticipate that by the middle of July, they'd be able to give us a finished product for reopening and a return to work process, which also includes kind of some training videos for staff, which is one of the requirements we have in bringing our staff back. This evening's conference call with the governor, we learned that Brian shared with you, anticipate more guidance on graduation. Childcare continues to be a significant concern within the state of Connecticut, with over 22,000 slots for childcare. That 22,000 people who need childcare, or 22,000 children who need childcare who don't have a slot at this point. Rosa DeLauro has submitted a bill proposal for $50 billion to kind of coincide with part of a relief package for states. That's how dire the need for childcare is at this time. Commissioner of Education was on the call, and we're all waiting for the return to school in the fall guidance, which we thought we would have by the 1st of June, and he hoped to get that to us in the next couple of weeks. We're using our absolute best thinking, the information and the resources we have to begin to plan. So those were the updates. I want to share with you just really quickly, because I think we could use a little bit of a feel good. I just asked some of our teachers if they would just share some of the pictures from the parade, so I could share that with you. Hang on, let me just get back to the beginning. Here we go. A lot of fun, and as I said, probably close to 200 people who participated in this. Oops. Sorry. Well, we can just go backwards. How about that? There's an article in the Middletown Press that I can share the slideshow with you if you haven't seen it, just so you can take a look at that. They're Christine's children at Tippy Pop's house. So that was from Team Pop thanking all of us, which was awesome. This, I absolutely love this. This is Katie Reddick's son. Katie is a Latin teacher at our middle school, and that is her son, Atticus. Upon seeing his teacher, Kristen Blake, I happened to be behind them in the car. It was just, it was something out of a Hallmark movie. I mean, he literally levitated from the ground, as you can see there. And that was a feel-good day for all of us, for sure. And I want to thank you, Bob, for participating.
I did get a little wet. I was in my son-in-law's Jeep with no sides and top, so it got a little damp when we slowed down, but it was fun. Anything else, Kath?
Not on. Just trying to close the school year. You usually end the school year with a little bit of joy and relief, and it's absolutely a different experience for everybody involved. And I think you know, we miss the kids. We really miss our students, and just the uncertainty of the fall, I think weighs heavily on people's minds right now. But an outstanding job on behalf of every single person in this district. So hats off to everyone, and thank you to the board.
I was just wondering, the kids that usually get PT, OT, and speech, have they been able to get that online at all, or are they not getting it at all?
They are.
Okay. I know it's obviously different, but at least, you know, they're getting something.
I mean, I can attest to, I mean, personally, we have a little bit of a different speech plan, but for PT and OT, I mean, anybody that knows Miss Penny and Miss Carla, they are probably two of the most creative people that I think we have in the district. And like, they're always like, you know, they'll send us videos. I mean, you guys see with Miss Penny, she's like, all right, now move the iPad. Now I want you to go into a downward dog, you know, like they're like, you know, doing it. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing like being in person, but I have to say they're both, you know, Miss Carla had her daughter send like, had to trace something with a ruler and stuff. So like they're both, I think, definitely, like most, doing the best that they can.
Christine, would you mind just giving that a tiny little bit of a shout out to Alex Edwards? I mean, I just think as we're talking about what teachers have been doing, I just think that's a great example of just the commitment of our teachers.
I mean, full disclaimer, I might cry because I actually did write him a very nice email the other day. So, you know, I was like most of us parents, you know, it's trying to think of like teacher gifts, you know, and I sent everybody an email, but I sent a separate email to Mr. Edwards, who's the PE teacher at Brewster and Lyman. And I basically, you know, said to him, I said, you know, this was a challenging year for the Giraffes in particular, with our daughter overcoming a huge surgery. And I said, you know, a couple months ago, so many staff members were telling me like how amazing he was with our daughter, Mackenzie, and how he just went above and beyond to accommodate her in PE and just constantly gave her different tasks to do so that she was always feeling included. And I said to him in an email, I said, you know, inclusion to most people might seem like, oh, that's so easy, but that's not the case all the time. And so, but what I said to him was that over the past, you know, 2 months now or so, watching him on distance learning, and he doesn't just comment on every post to both my girls. It's his enthusiasm in his voice that he makes these kids feel absolutely unbelievable. And that like when they're in a Google Meet, it's like my kid is the only person in a Google Meet, like with him. Like he's just like, hey, rock star, oh my God, you're doing a great job. And like, he's absolutely amazing. Like, I mean, I really had to give him like a lot of props because I think probably oftentimes too, I feel like sometimes like the related arts teachers sometimes might get like overlooked, you know, and I just really wanted to let him know how appreciative we were and that it did not go unnoticed by any means.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions about the end of the year, next year? All right, the next is item 10, new business. We have 3 proposals for a search consultant. I think Kim mailed you 2 and I mailed you 1 today. I know you haven't had a chance to read them, but I was thinking if, as part of our next meeting, if we have a short agenda, that we could use part of that for an interview and then select the consultant after the June 24th meeting. We give everybody time to go over the proposals. We could look at all the finance issues and the scheduling, and then we could select a consultant. there's a wide chat on there's apparently several superintendents who have retired or chosen to leave their school system this year. So on the board chair chat room, there's quite a few consultants or people talking about the experience they had with many of these same people. And so there's a lot of actually good recommendations that I'm seeing for virtually all of those folks that we've received proposals from, and some individuals in particular. So I would, if that's okay, I would try to set up a schedule and invite them for maybe a 10-minute presentation each. We could schedule the times and then let them actually could see some people live who we're going to be working with, and then after that we could select one. And so any comments or questions or thoughts?
Bob, can you send us or the information that was being conveyed out of these chat rooms or whatever information you had already received with regards to the services? Can you send that to us in some way, or do you have that, or was that just your experience and it may be hard to convey? And then the second thing I would say is my hope would be it would be longer than 10 minutes presentation for each group. I think it's hard to get a sense of in 10 minutes. Those are the only two thoughts I had at this point.
Yeah, I was looking for that. It's kind of like a site where from CABE, and it seemed to have disappeared, but I'll try to find it. There's quite a few comments on it, and I'll try to find it somewhere in our mail and send it out to everybody. It's just people commenting on the search that they were doing and who was helpful to them, stuff like that. So it'll be of value to you, I think.
If you ask people to present, they will send you a pretty comprehensive packet beforehand. If they're invited to present on the 24th, they'll send something to you that you can share with the rest of the board. In my experience, presentations by consultants are at the shortest 30 minutes, but 30 to 45 minutes generally.
But you can read their whole proposal in 30 minutes. So it's I don't know. I've read all the proposals. I'm not sure that it would take much more than meeting the people who have, I'll schedule more than 10 minutes, but I mean, it seems to me that maybe we could settle for 20 minutes, have 10 minutes in between so they have time to run over and the other people can get online. But
generally the board, there's some discussion with board members. They have questions and stuff, but yeah, 10 minutes is probably a little tight.
All right. Well, how about we do 20 minutes with a 10-minute in between? So if they go 30 minutes, they'll have time. But I think the most important part of it is their proposals are all pretty much similar. It's really about who you're comfortable with the people who are actually going to be working with you.
A little bit of,
go ahead.
A little bit of time in between for our discussion is also appropriate. Yeah. So if you run them for 30 minutes and ask them to limit themselves to 20 or less, it gives us a little time to collectively digest what we've heard.
And would it be possible to start at 6 that night?
Yeah, Bob, I think that was was going to be my suggestion. And I agree with Kathy. I think that 10, 15, 20 minutes is a little light. I've been through the process several times, and they sometimes just get warmed up in 10 minutes. So I think starting at 6 would be a great idea.
Is that, Norman, is that considered a executive session or not?
I suspect it is because it's a personnel issue. I can run it by Tom Hennick and give you a more definitive answer tomorrow.
Yeah, because I would like, if others are going to be able to listen, you might have to be careful how you talked about certain things.
Yeah, it is basically a sales pitch. I mean, but it is a very sensitive matter to us because we need to choose the right firm.
It's also a contract issue. So I think as a contract, it's kind of, it walks the line between a contract and a personnel issue, both of which can be executive session.
Well, Norm, if you would check that out, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll get him on the phone tomorrow.
Thank you.
I think
I owe him a call anyway.
You want to make sure it's the right fit. I think it's important for the board to, feel that you guys can collectively agree on, kind of the style and the process, which I'm sure you will. Hey, Bob, I just wanted you to know, we skipped over item 10, the strategic plan for reopening and recovery.
I thought you had included that. Never mind.
Pardon?
I thought you had included that, but we'll go back to it.
Okay, I'll do, you know what I'm going to do? I think for tonight, I'll just kind of go over one section. I don't think we need to do it in a really comprehensive way this evening. That we can do that on the 24th, or obviously throughout the summer.
All right, well, I'll work on yes. Chris.
I was just gonna say one thing about the search firms, because I know there's 3 proposals. Could we possibly narrow it down to 2 to give those 2 consulting firms a little bit more time? Because while I totally, me of all people, appreciate us putting time limits on things, and so, but to have like 3 presentations in one night, I feel like that's a meeting alone. So maybe we could narrow it down to 2, and then from there, do you think that's possible?
Well, we'd have to have some kind of meeting to decide which 2.
Yeah,
could we have an HR meeting?
I would be a little. I'm suggestion. I know personally. I know 2 of the 3 persons involved, and I would have a hard time eliminating one or the other. I have not read the 3rd proposal, so I'm a little leery about narrowing it down in advance. With all due respect.
Yeah. We have probably very little to put on the board agenda that night either, so we could have a very short meeting.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Okay. First question: who on our board currently has experience with the whole superintendent selection process and selecting people? I know Norm does. Victor, who else?
That's
so
it.
Norm and Victor are it?
Yep.
Okay. So, we're going to rely heavily on you guys for advice and guidance as we go through this process. Just, at least I am. So just to let you know. My second question is, oftentimes you get the principal of the firm to come in and make the sales pitch. And then the person that's actually going to be doing the work on our behalf could be the A team, the B team, or the C team. And is the person that's going to come and make the presentation and talk to us going to be the person we're going to be working with on the go forward basis? Or is it a representative of the firm saying, this is what we do, trust us, we'll get you the A person that's really a D person. So,
well, normally I've been in those situations, I've always required that the person that's going to be the project person to be at the interview and all the work I've done.
Okay.
So we can
at the interview or actually making the presentation. And I think I'd just rather hear from the person the entire time rather than somebody else.
Yeah, but sometimes the boss has to get their overhead paid,
Yeah, okay, then give the boss 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I've been in situations where we've hired people that have told us, oh gosh, this is going to be great. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then I end up getting some guy that I end up having to train to do the job he's supposed to be doing for me. And it's just, and this is a situation where I wouldn't know where to start to train the person to do this job. So We need somebody that's got experience, and I want to make sure the person we're talking to has the experience. That's all. That's my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, well, we will, I will specify in the invitation that they bring the person who's actually going to be doing the work. We want to hear from them personally. We have other community members who have volunteered to help in this process. So once we get a selection, then we've got to look at, all of these proposals have some kind of focus activity from the community and a few other things like that. So we will probably be able to get a number of people to help throughout this process. And they will want to work with a smaller group of people than all 10 of us. And coincidentally, there may be 3 of us off this board by July 1st as well.
Yeah, maybe you don't have to worry. I'd just like to make the point that to your concern, Bob, that hearing from the people who are actually going to work with us would be one of the criteria by which we judge proposals. If that is clear to the boss when he walks in the room, then I think we can expect that we'll get compliance.
Yep.
Bob, it's been my experience, and certainly not as a superintendent, but as a principal, I just would be in a board meeting where when a search, they didn't select or the firms would present in open session. And in every case I was a part of, the person who was going to be the lead was the person who did the presentation. And then if you've seen what it looks like, the surveying, focus groups, site visits, it's a very, very comprehensive, and it's basically very similar in terms of the process and the procedure. It really is, I think, about recommendations from other people who have used the consultant or the firm and the fit with this Board of Education.
Well, if that's all right with everybody, I'll start sending out letters, and we'll set up a time on the 24th for interviews, and we'll probably start at 6. We'll give them 20 minutes plus time in between, and it'll all be on Zoom. We actually may be able to meet as a group live if you wanted to do it, and we could have one, they could Zoom into the library. So if you're comfortable with getting together on the 24th, we can separate by 10 feet in the library if you are ready to move that. And I would ask Andrew if he's ready.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think with the 10 or 12 of us, we could easily separate in the room, and then we would, we could be together and have them Zoom in on a proposal. So that would also help us handle the executive session piece of it. All right, well, I'll try both of those things. Missy.
We're supposed to have a student achievement meeting that day. Do we know if that's happening?
Yes, it can. Maybe we'll move student achievement to another day, though, so you guys can really focus on the search consultant presentations.
I was just thinking if that's going to be a long meeting, then it might be a little too much to do both.
Yeah.
I think we should move student achievement.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
And probably student achievement will be end of the year report on what's happened and how we're going to probably deal with assessments of where they've been and how they made through the year.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Kath, back to you. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just do, I've been talking to you about how, just in a Google slideshow, here are some of the areas that we identified in the 6 areas that were identified by the regional advisory groups. And again, in the absence of a plan, we began to create our own. and use those 6 areas in terms of just in the beginning, the very first area that was identified. And again, this is an area Norm probably can talk more about because he's on one of the regional advisory committees, that those were the 6 priority areas. And so we've kind of customized it to our district and have really begun to develop our accountability system for these areas by saying, this is the overarching goal. Here are the action steps we're going to take. These are the resources that we will use in order to support the achievement of those actions. Each school now has identified staff members who will work on kind of mini teams in order to address these issues. This really should say department responsible up here, where we need to really set the dates by which we'll have things done. And this is something that I look at every single week and will look at with my administrative team, facilities, Kim, nursing staff, and the planning and response team, just to see the progress we're making. And again, this is just the type of thing, it helps to keep you accountable and moving forward. I did talk about it just in terms of our communication, to begin to use a color coding with our communications. So spread mitigation will always be red, well-being will always be in blue. We want to make sure, because I think we have absolutely inundated with people with communication during the school closure, just in an effort to make sure that people knew what was going on. We really shared a lot of information. So we're really looking at what the communication vehicle is, and that actually happens to be one of the priority areas here. So these are areas that I have, that I've reviewed with you. I'll just pull out a couple of them, just for the sake of talking a little bit more deeply. We talked about protecting the time for play inside and out for students of all ages. And interestingly enough, this was a topic that we discussed with Dr. Jubileer, who came at it just from the point of the virus and the importance of, whenever possible, being in farther proximity of each other and being able to be outside. The next area about conducting surveys and focus groups, obviously, we've been surveying people on distance learning. Kim can talk a little bit about the preliminary results we've gotten as we sent out information that we need to get back from people anyway on transportation, but just about what the intention of our parents is in thinking about sending their students to school on the bus in the fall. The before and after care survey will go out tomorrow morning, along with a question about, I'm calling it intention to attend. What are parents' intention at this point? What will influence their decision on their child attending school in the fall? The last one there, union status. Next week, I will be meeting with all of our union presidents, and have also invited their UNISERV reps, which means the person that work with them at the state level, just to begin an informal conversation. What I did was I asked my union reps to reach out to the people that they represent to get feedback, so that when we come to the table, I'm imagining that we will probably create another memorandum of understanding going into the fall, because there will likely be some changes in terms of expectation, possibly school schedules, and some what I would refer to as kind of some creative responsibilities for various people on our staff. So really, this is meant to give you an example. I also want to be sure that people who are listening to this meeting see, understand, and see evidence of the fact that we're serious about getting ready for this in the best way that we can. So much so that I have attended Zoom meetings on hand sanitizer. And this is an area with spread mitigation that Kim And I have worked closely with Sue Gaudreau and Jimmy Croto, who are doing an absolute phenomenal job. And in addition to being extraordinarily responsible, they're both tremendously good critical thinkers. And every single decision that we make has kind of has a spider web of influence and considerations. One of the things we talked about actually, and again, just by way of example, and then I'll shut this down and we can talk about operations and logistics and the other areas on June 24th. And I will share this with the board as well. We were just talking about the total number of hours that might be needed for our custodial staff if we change the way in which we're cleaning and disinfecting our buildings and the frequency of that. We need to look at how that might change the people in our custodial our bargaining unit and what types of responsibilities they'll have. We've also talked about in that area that there may be things that, for instance, I will be kind of cleaning and disinfecting my own kind of work area, as will many other people who have their own desk and office areas. So diminishing the need for our custodial staff to do that. But just, really, folks, for you to run your eyes over some of these things, it's meant to probably tell you or give you an idea of what you already know. This is multifaceted and complicated, and we're addressing it in as organized and comprehensive a manner as possible, so that if in fact we are back in school in whatever design in the fall, people know what's happening, we know what we're doing, and we're able to reassure staff and parents that that they know what the plan is as they're returning to work. And I think that's probably enough for this evening, Bob. And we'll talk about it more at our planning and response team meeting next Tuesday in its entirety. Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. There's a tremendous amount of information that's coming to me, I think, from private people and organizations. I've tried to screen them and send any things that actually look valid to you into Kim, but there's a ton of stuff that's coming through almost hourly as to people trying to sell PPE, from people trying to show how to disinfect. So there's a tremendous amount of information that's coming through in addition to what the state and other agencies are saying. You did get new foggers. I noticed that Sue told us to disinfect the buildings. So,
well, when Kim gives her report, she can give you a little fogger update.
All right.
Let me just tell you, nothing's easy.
And there's even, how are we going to get these supplies, and who's going to pay for them and where they come from, and Kim could give that. The next item on agenda is communications.
Before we go on, can I just, for a point of information about the memorandum of understandings with the staff members, I'm just wondering, like, what is the board level involvement with that process? And I'm just anticipating the possibility that we have tremendous differences in the way that we staff things next year. I wasn't aware that the board was a part of that process initially back in February or March when this was initially going on. And I just didn't know. I don't know if the board is traditionally a part of that process to begin with. And if we have been in the past, and I really think that we should be involved in that process for this next round, because I think that there are big challenges when it comes to staffing and anticipation of how that staffing might flex and change over the next couple of months. Kath, you're muted.
Yes, agreed. And I think that what we may be looking at for MOUs going into the fall, depending on what the backdrop looks like, could be very different than we basically all got a boilerplate for an MOU, some of it influenced by executive orders about kind of keeping people whole and kind of nuances of this is going to be the length of the day. And, some things that there was very little kind of negotiating around. And I think heading into the fall, I think we will see greater variation across districts than we did at this time. So yes, agreed.
Thank you. In terms of communication, probably the biggest thing that happened was there was nominations for the 3 expiring board members, me, Norm, and Christine. Last night, we were all nominated. 3 others were nominated, Phil Auger, John Stone, and Kirsten Olszewski, I think. So there'll be an election on June 30th from 4 to 8, drive through at Corn School driveway. You need your license, and you stick it out at the window and somebody will give you a ballot and you drop off the ballot at the other end. You also can get an absentee ballot, and they indicated that due to the COVID, you can claim sickness and submit an absentee ballot if you want to go through the election from 4 to 8. There's also a tremendous number of CABE things. I think you did get the invitation to go to the webinar on Friday on equity issues. And anybody who would like to go, please sign up for that. Looked like it would be a helpful discussion for an hour. Other than that, I haven't gotten much lately, which is nice. And anybody else have any communications?
I'd just like to mention that last Thursday I was unanimously elected board chair at ACES again. But of course, that all has to do with what happens on June 30th. So, but nonetheless, if that comes out positively, then I'll be steering that ship again.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Norm.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
One other communication: Monday evening, Middlefield Board of Finance approved the budget as presented, and that includes the supplemental $25,000 expenditure for the courts at Memorial Middle School in Middlefield.
Great.
I was going to say, we just want to acknowledge Thomas Peters, a student in the district who organized the walk last Saturday. I couldn't attend because we were not in town that day, but I heard that I think it was like over 200 people. It was, very peaceful, just a walk from Strong to the town green in Durham, and I heard he did a fantastic job.
I heard that too from my grandson, who did go to the demonstration. Any other communications? If not, Kim, Director of Finance report.
Okay, let's talk funders. Before we were sent home, the school closure, we placed an order for, I want to say 6, maybe it's 5 or 6 foggers. Of course, they were on back order as everybody was going out to get them at the same time. We've since received, I think, 2, and we were very excited. Sue and Jimmy tried them out, and they weren't what we had hoped they would be in terms of they left a residue on the surfaces, and almost like a chalky residue. So not to be discouraged, Jim and Sue reached out to another one of our regular suppliers and asked, is there anything that they have that we can use in those electrostatic sprayers, and they do. And it actually works much better. So that plan B really paid off for us. So we're going to be able to use the foggers and use them to how they were intended. The surface does take a little bit of time to dry. So this isn't something that we would be doing during, the school day, while, during, if the kids went to the bathroom or something, we wouldn't be doing it at that point. It would just be done at the end of the day. So, and that just makes it easier to sanitize the entire room if you can spray it. PPE, who's purchasing and who's paying for it? Good question. We're working through ACES and CERC through CSDE for cooperative purchasing of PPE. So I have some quantities into ACES. Just today we heard from the State Department of Education that they're working through CERC. So I sent them my same quantities and we're going to get that moving ASAP. That's been part of our reentry meeting. I'm working with really what the staff would need and then what the students would need, what kind of PPE. So who's going to pay for it? We're going to pay for it. And then we're hoping that when FEMA, if there is still funds available to districts through a FEMA application, that we will get that at 75% reimbursement. FEMA is the last possible funding stream. You have to go through your other funding streams first, which would be your budgeted funds, and then also would be the CARES Act. CARES Act is only offering us around $43,000, and we're going to be able to, use that up with our, educational recovery plan as well as technology needs. So once we expend that, then we can start putting applications in for FEMA for those expenditures. Bus transportation. This week, for the first time, we sent the bus forms to parents and guardians via Parent Square. I'm a big fan of electronic whenever possible, and we got that done. That was something that we had implemented for open enrollment, working through Parent Square with our staff and having them fill out their forms electronically, and it was amazing, a wonderful experience. So I had asked, could we do that for our bus forms that we send home every year? So with the help of Jen in the IT department, she created the forms for me. We sent it out. And then we're going to be able to give this information to DACO electronically. Right now, we have people entering every single, not on our side, but on DACO's side. And we're going to be able to give that to them electronically. But also not only for that reason, but for us, we can run reports by bus. We can do a lot of different things with this capability. And I think it's easier for parents. So as part of this form that we send out every year, a paper copy, Dr. Serino said, I want to put a few survey questions on there and check the parents' intent as to whether they'll ride the school bus or not. So the simple questions were, how much did you use the bus in the 1920 year? How much do you plan to use it next year? And then the big one is, will you be transporting your child due to COVID-19 concerns? And if so, what would need to happen for you to feel comfortable putting them back on the bus? I was surprised at the results, I have to say. This went out on Monday, so we have 501 out of the 1,600 that went out completed so far. And the results were that 415 students will use the bus during COVID-19, and 86 answered that they will not until there's a vaccine or whatever. We had asked what would happen. Is it, our protocols are cleaning? Is it the vaccine? Is it the PPE? So I was actually not expecting that kind of result. So what that tells me is that we've really got to do some work on the transportation if and when we do open again in September 1st. And if with social distancing, 12 to 14 kids on a 72 passenger bus, we're going to need to do some creative thinking. Hopefully it's a short 3 months. There's a vaccine, hopefully, and then we can revert back to our normal transportation. But so that's going to be a very big factor, I think, in what the school year return looks like, because if we have to get more buses and we have to put a monitor on every bus, who has to take temperatures? So it will be very costly. More good news.
Is the monitor mandate from the state?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We do have monitors on some of our buses now. However, I'm not sure, I think they probably can, the monitor's there to take the temperatures. So if they're there anyways, and their only really job is to monitor when they get on the bus and then social distance. If you have 12 kids on there, that's easy for one person. So some of the buses we won't need to hire new monitors for, but most of them we will.
And the state didn't specify any kind of restrictions or who qualifies as being a monitor?
None at all. They would just need training and proper PPE.
And just as another question, so there are monitors always on every bus or not?
Not on every bus. There are certain buses that require them for whatever reasons. So there are a few, but it's not, there may be 5 or 6 out of 19 or 20 runs.
But the new requirement is that there has to be a monitor on every bus.
Correct.
Regardless.
Correct.
Okay. And it's not necessarily due just to the temperature. I'm just thinking why couldn't the bus drivers measure the temperatures for students? I mean, it's just a huge expense because you're hiring an additional person for every bus that's going to be there. So
I think it's to enforce social distancing too, while the bus is in motion, while the driver's driving. And if you're reducing your capacity of your bus by a quarter, well, by 3/4, you're down to a quarter capacity. That's even how many more monitors than just what we would need for our current fleet. So whether we alternate days.
Yeah. And do we have a sense, following current guidelines, about what our bus capacity would need to be, and how, I mean, are we going to need 2 times the number of buses, or are we going to be scheduling them to run on 2-hour like time schedules where they're having to do double pickups in areas because of the distancing? I mean, these are, you're effectively potentially doubling your busing expenses. And it's something we have not budgeted for is the other thing to bring up. So
exactly, and you're reducing your bus by almost 75% capacity, because a 72 passenger will fit 12 to 14 kids. So you're really taking a hit on that. And I think the transportation is a big factor in how the year will look, or how we'll open the school year, is what we can do for that transportation. Is it staggering bell times? Is it making multiple runs? There's many scenarios at play. In terms of the monitors, we also discussed during a meeting today, Dr. Serino and I, that potentially we have food service staff members or paraprofessionals already in district who may want to just work a couple extra hours before and after school to ride the bus. So we're looking at that too. Okay, to move on.
So did the state, when they mandated this, or they're looking to mandate it, they're not providing any funding for it? Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. They're saying the CARES Act, but we've already, we're not getting a lot based on our Title I application percentage. And like you said, this has been guidance from the state that it's mandated. We haven't gotten the official word yet, but the feeling is that it's been mentioned, and it probably will come to fruition.
So they mandated that we pay all of the bus companies when we weren't using the buses. And now they're mandating that we hire 2 to 3 times the number of buses and a monitor for every bus, but it's on us.
Yes, in the school business world, we call that unfunded mandates, and we love those.
We call it that across all of the municipal. It just blows my mind.
No, and Bob, I mean, I think this is going to be our really hard decision moving into next year, is weighing what choices we want to make with regards to providing educational opportunities that aren't explicitly mandated by the state, because of the inefficiencies in the system that are going to occur from all of the social distancing restrictions and other health restrictions. because it may not make sense to bring kids to school all of the time if we're spending 2, 3, 4 times the cost in busing and other things. So it's just I think that there's a lot of discussion that's going to have to happen in the early part of the coming year.
Every discussion we have, Bob, is just like this. I mean, we were talking about wiping down tables that need 10 minutes to dry. And then what if somebody has a dirty hand and they touch the table? And should we put paper over it? Like, every single decision is multifaceted like this one. This one just happens to be very, very expensive. And there's a lot of, whenever we're having these discussions, I think about, so what's Bridgeport going to do? What is New Haven going to do? What are these massive school districts?
Well, they're going to get the state funding.
But you know what? I think it's an economy of scale, what you've got to be spending your money on. And I just think there is going to be a reasonableness factor that must come into play, because we've talked about equity and access. That has been what the Commissioner of Education has been talking about, equity and access. And if a plan diminishes certain school districts from having the equity and access that other school districts have, I just don't think that they can stand behind that and say, this is what you're going to do. So I do think, I think we're going to have to be in either a continuation of some type of distance learning or a relaxation of the expectation of things like, 12 kids on a school bus. It's just going to be, it will be impossible.
Let me ask a question at the risk of being burned at the stake for a heretical statement. Are we mandated to bus every student in the district, or just those with special needs?
We are mandated to transport students.
Every student.
And that's why we had run the survey to kind of feel if we didn't have the participation, we could then, if parents were going to drive them, they could opt out for that period of time, and then we just know what we need for buses. But the response is coming in that people are going to be using it. The other piece is bus drivers. We have a hard time getting bus drivers. How are we going to get a bus drivers ×4 nationwide?
Kim, on that survey, did you ask the parents whether they would be willing to drive their kids to school out of some, communities like self-sacrifice? Because that's the other question is, we need to start thinking about what we can ask of our community to mitigate some of these kind of, expenditures that we potentially can incur. And if there are families that can, but may not necessarily want to, I don't think it's unreasonable. And I think this is kind of where Bob was going as well, like to see, can we get to 50% of kids are being delivered by parents and 50% are still utilizing the bus services. And those are types of things that we may be able to at least somewhat control cost components. But that requires, people sacrificing and saying, yeah, I can do this for the sake of the community.
I have a question for Kim. As I recall, years ago, we used to have, there was a rule about we had to have a seat for every child on the bus, whether or not they used the bus. As I recall, we tried to reduce the number of buses one year in the high school because a lot of kids drive. And it came back that we had to supply those bus seats anyway, whether they use them or not.
So I think parents are allowed to opt out if we were to voluntarily opt out. But parents were reluctant to do that in the sense that they would say, well, what if the car breaks down and we need it? I don't want to lose my ability to use the bus should we need it. But this is a different circumstance, and maybe it's just 3 months, 4 months, whatever the time frame is, and then we revert back. So I think if parents voluntarily opted out, we could work with that.
I do think that needs somewhat of an investigation, because as I recall, we did try to get parents to opt out. They did. And lo and behold, we had to keep the same number of buses.
So they're talking
You know what?
a more widespread relaxation of that expectation, so that it wouldn't have to be by district, but that given the extraordinary circumstance, but we don't have any final decision on that yet, Norm.
Oh, Kath, we can only hope.
You know what probably will help is, because it's obviously for a lot of parents a childcare issue. You know, it's like, I'm sure many of us, you know, leave for work at 7:15 or throw the kids on the bus. I mean, I used to wait at the bottom of the driveway, get the last kid on the bus, and then go right to work. So I'm sure if we ended up doing something with before and after care, I bet you I think that would really probably help the bus situation.
Mm-hmm.
And Norm, I think grandparents are going to be required to drive their grandkids.
Yeah, I think you and I are going to be in the same boat.
All right.
Will you be substitute grandparents?
Sure.
And so when the parents start to carpool, which is what I was figuring, they'll pile 8 kids into a minivan, yet we can only put 8 on a 72 passenger bus.
Oh, you know what, Bob? That's not going to be a minivan. It's going to be in the back of a pickup truck.
Oh, so it's outside. I get it.
At least for Bob and me, anyway.
Nice.
Thank you, Kim. Any more?
I was just going to say, I also think that, like, I know for myself, like, I'm planning to probably drive my kids, but I said I would be using it just in case I needed to go to a work meeting or I couldn't get there for pickup. So I think, and I've talked to a couple other parents that kind of felt the same, as like, when we're able to drive them, we're going to do it, but we can't opt out 100%. So I think that there probably will be less than what, answered.
Okay.
And I know, I mean, I don't know if it just happens to be my children's bus, but I know like Lyman Bus 6 and Memorial Bus 13, like they're never full, not even close to being full. And I don't know if that's because we live in the very outskirts of Durham, or if it's just because that many people don't use the bus.
At the same time, of course, imagine the nightmare scenario that you're running a bus with less than the number of possible students, and all the students who are possible show up. What do? Leave kids at the curb? I'm just asking.
Yeah. Kim, back to you.
Meals. So food service, we will be continue to serve meals until June 30th, at which time we no longer meet the criteria to serve meals. But the state of Connecticut last week informed us that they have applied for waiver to USDA to allow sites that are not eligible to be able to serve for July and August. So those sites that are 50% or more free and reduced are what the sites that are eligible. We don't meet that, but we may, if that waiver comes through, that may open a door for us. But what that means too for us, right now the cafeteria fund, and this isn't news to you, but we're experiencing a shortfall due to the absence of revenue. We're providing free meals. We are getting some reimbursement back from the state, but it's, pennies on the dollar. But we get that as being a part of the National School Lunch Program. Hoping for a reimbursement from FEMA at 75%. I had a webinar with the CSDE Child Nutrition Department Tuesday of this week. And they were under the impression that FEMA might not be a revenue source for us. However, when I was on a webinar with Homeland Security about FEMA specifically, they said it would qualify. So the Child Nutrition Department has a meeting on Thursday with another state agency, the Public Services, and they're going to specifically ask that question for us. So more guidance will come on that. But again, that's at a 75% reimbursement. Like I said before, FEMA's the last resort. So we must use our budgeted funds and our CARE Act funds first. So to keep the food service fund operating, we've had to make transfers. So I've had to make transfers over to cover the food as well as the payroll. So today I've transferred $80,000. I estimate the total deficit through the end of June to be about 115,000, and that will increase if we serve during July and August. The food service staff was under governor executive order that we had to pay them anyways. So this didn't necessarily cost us more payroll wise, but it will for July and August because those folks don't work in July and August. So then we'll have that additional expense.
Windows?
The 75% reimbursement's about $86,000 if the deficit comes in at 115 and leaving a gap of 29,000. I'm seeking direction from the board because there's a couple of options that how we can handle this transfer. The first is a loan to the food service department that would be paid back to the general fund. But in reality, the food service department really runs break even and very close to break even every year. There aren't additional funds to pay back loans. I just simply can't see a way that the food service would be able to pay back that kind of loan. The second option is to expense these funds as board expenses and book them as the payroll and supplies and take them out of the board budget for the 1920 year. Once reimbursement comes in, if it does, that would all go right back into the board account and it would reverse any kind of expenditures that the board covered. So I don't know if you're willing to have a discussion now about it, or if you can get back to me. I don't need to know now, but if you can get back to me maybe for the 24th before the year ends. I think on the 24th I'll know better too whether that waiver has been granted or not, and what your feeling is if we should participate in the July and August seamless summer option. The option of sending our children to Middletown and Meriden exists if we don't participate for July and August. So they can still get meals, just not from our site.
Kim, can you check with the auditor on the process that you're just talking about, if that's acceptable?
Oh yeah, I did not, I certainly will, but I know that they'll, either one is fine. I mean, the auditor doesn't really dictate. If the board wants to, as a function of running, pay for some of the food service, which many districts across Connecticut do because they don't break even, they run it at a loss. That's perfectly acceptable. Both ways is acceptable. I just, in my personal opinion, they're not going to be able to pay the loan back.
Right.
Okay, I will move on. Financials. So your packet had the May financials. General fund is 84% expended and revenue is 98% received. We have already in June made the final teacher payments, which include balloon payments. So that is not reflected because your financials go through the end of May. So that has been done in June. MTA is 74% expended and revenue is at 85%. We will be reimbursing the board for the health insurance that the board pays on behalf of the MTA, and then MTA reimburses it in June. And also we have the final teacher payments in balloons in June for MTA. Wanted to mention a repair, Pickett Lane water system. We lost a compressor, $15,000 to replace. That provides water service to all of Pickett Lane. Jimmy's getting quotes, and we're saying, oh, we're so close to getting a water line, but we're still 2 years out, and we have to have water. So unfortunately, it's an expense we're going to have to make. And lastly, the surplus, as I presented at previous board meetings, the 1920 estimated surplus was about 683,000. We were using 616 of that to budget the 2021 budget, and remaining 68,000 for the next, like we've done in the past. We're running completely on track for that. So that's a really comfortable position to be in. And, once the final teacher payroll is made on Friday, and we're closing out POs, and we'll have a better sense of where we're at, but we're not going to be any worse for the wear. So I'm very comfortable at that surplus number and what we've used to balance the 2021 budget. That's it.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions? Thank you for all your work. I know that it's hard to do this at home and it's hard to do it at the office, but thank you so much for all your work. The next is time for public comment. Ken, do we have any public comment out there?
Nobody has called in.
Okay. We then have an anticipated executive session. We want to move that we go into executive session for the discussion of the superintendent's evaluation.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we're now in executive session. Lucy, you want to start?